Hey everyone, thanks for coming by the podcast. I appreciate the kind words and encouragement so far. It means a lot and I really appreciate it. Just wanted to stop in real quick and give you a heads up. My dog Maggie decided to join the podcast about midway through. So unfortunately, you're going to hear the clicking of her paws throughout the episode. I apologize about that. I'm still working through how to get clean audio and then also learning what gets picked up on the microphone. So bear with me as I figure that out, but really hope you enjoy this episode. Ryan Milsap, Mazel Tov, dude.
Mazel Tov.
Thank you for coming on here.
Thanks for having me. We
were talking before, and I kind of want to try to pick up from where we left off, but essentially, similar to JT, me and you both went to high school together, for people that don't know. And one of the things that I wanted to try and dig in with you was kind of what life's been like since high school to now, which would be about 15 years for us. But more like in particular, I don't know, I guess anything that stands out to you about things you've learned or...
Yeah, I think we were talking about earlier. I think one of the things now as I relate everything to the kids, right?
Right.
Like, what am I going to teach them? So, I guess not necessarily high school, because we really didn't have a lot of money in high school. But my thing is, it's like that I learned outside of high school, right out of high school, was like necessarily like not keeping up with the Joneses, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like I got bad into it, especially working out there, like overtime and all that stuff. Like I was like obsessed with trying to make as much money as possible. Mm-hmm. And well, so-and-so bought this, I'm going to buy this too. I'm just going to work some overtime, blah, blah, blah. You know, well, of course, you know, when you start having kids and stuff, your perspectives change, and now it's for them and college funds and stuff like that.
Right.
That would be my main thing, is don't worry about what I learned, which I guess I was kind of doing in high school, but it's hard not to fall into that trap, right? Of like worrying about what everybody else is doing. I think that's probably my main thing.
Yeah. Stop
worrying about what everybody else is doing. Focus on yourself.
So I was telling Justin this, Justin being the last person that we had on the podcast. I was telling him, and I'd be interested to know if you had a similar thing. But before our kids were born, me and Rosie went out and we were having a conversation. And one of the things that I was sharing with her was something I like to be able to pass on to the kids is an acceptance, or for them to learn or be able to accept themselves as they are. Mm-hmm. And the reason I bring this up is because you're saying like not falling into the Joneses or whatever, like falling into the narrative. Like, to me, that was huge for me, was and I struggle with it, but fairly early on, just learning like I don't have to be like everybody else. Right. Like, I can kind of pave my own path. I can be a little bit unique. Like, I can do this thing that I enjoy, but I know that nobody else does, or very few people do. And so one of the things that I wanted to try and accomplish as a parent was anything and everything I could to help them with that, to help them feel comfortable in their own skin, to feel okay to pursue whatever they enjoyed or felt brought them happiness. And I know that's like a struggle, because that, to some degree or to a large degree, that's a personal hurdle.
Right.
No one can help you do that. Like, they can help you, but no one can do that for you. Like, I can't make them feel comfortable in their own skin. But I just wanted to, that was, to me, it was a big thing for me, and obviously still trying to do it, is trying to help them be comfortable with who they are. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not a big battle because they don't even know who they are.
Right.
There's no self-awareness. And so that's not really a battle we've come against. In some sense it is, because Juliet's starting to become more aware of how she's being perceived by other people. So you can see shyness coming through. You can see that if she acts silly, that people notice it, and so she's aware of it. Jonah, no clue, dude. Like, he's just a savage. But sorry, to get it back around to this, did you have anything, and maybe it was the same thing, I don't know, but did you have anything similar once before you started having kids of like, this is what I want to try and do as a parent or as a dad? Like, was there any particular like, hopefully I can do this, like, kind of thing?
I think you just nailed it. So here's what's interesting, right? Like, listening with you and JT, and then when you asked me to come on, I thought it was funny how all three of us grew up together, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like, especially growing up, whether it was middle school or high school, I felt like we're all three like totally different in one way, but we were very similar. All three of us were, because we did our own thing, and that was okay, and everybody was like accepting of that. But I think that's probably that's what I think about the most, right? Because like I was telling you earlier, I equate that to my parents and the music we listen to, right?
Right.
So like, I just had such a broad, like, whether in mom's car, I was telling you, like, DC Talk, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Amy Grant, like, only thing we listened to was like Christian music, right?
Right.
Get my dad's truck, and it would be like Albert King, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Queen. Like, it was just, I think him growing up in Louisiana, and then later on in life, mom being like, talking about Van Halen. Like, she was so upset the other day, about Eddie Van Halen dying or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you listen to Van Halen? And she was like, well, yeah. And, but I guess my point is I think I always equate music a big part in my life, because I think it helped me be in my own skin. Like, I could listen to hip hop and communicate with somebody else, and listen to, like I said, hardcore or whatever, and that's what I always will fall back into. And I especially think hardcore music, like, it's just the confirmation of being in your own skin, being okay with who you are, helped me. But back to the kid thing, like, how do I get my kids that way?
Right.
I don't want to I want them to grow up the way I did as far as the music aspect, and like, hopefully that helps them like broaden their horizons. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't just shove hardcore music in their face, or I can't shove like, or like country music or like anything like that.
Right.
'Cause I did, man. Like, I feel like it was funny, me and C were talking about this before we came on, and I was like, I was just, in high school was different. I think after high school is when I got obsessed with, making money and look at this, and I was poor, but look at me now. Like, I got this, this, and this. But like, dude, we were talking about it, and she was joking with her mom about it the other day. Like, dude, in high school, I had like one pair of Vans. Mm-hmm. I had like one pair of jeans.
Yeah.
And she always remembered this half man, half horse shirt I wore like twice a week. Like, I just didn't care. I didn't have anything. I didn't care. And I think back then in our small town, I guess if that's what you want to call it, everybody was more accepting of that. Like, that's just who Ryan was, and that's who he is. And I don't know. It's kind of weird.
So I don't know. It's something I want to try to get around to. I didn't know how to ask this in particular. And I guess this is like the perfect time to ask it. Is my perspective of you in high school is that you had it like, I don't know about together, but you had like, it seems like you had a confidence in yourself, and you were kind of like just okay with being you, which I think most people would relate and agree with. Like, middle school and high school is the most like insecure time ever, where you're like trying to figure out who you are, trying to figure out what you're comfortable with, gauging yourself against other people, comparing yourself nonstop. And my perspective of you is that you just weren't worried about that. Like, you had this kind of like, I'm just gonna be me.
Yeah.
And so you say like me, you and JT, who was just on the podcast, we were all similar. But like, I remember in that time I was like totally self-aware of like what am I wearing? How do people think about that? How am I doing my hair? Like, did you feel like you were kind of ahead of that, or did you feel like you were more in tune with like who you were, like, and not necessarily in contrast to other people? Like, because that was my perspective. I don't know if it was true or not. I mean, we all kind of look at other people like with different shades.
I think honestly, like my deal in high school, I think that it was like, okay, this is all I got. It is what it is, right? You know, so not high school. I'm talking like whether it was clothes or money, or I couldn't go do this or I couldn't go do that, or whatever the case was. I think honestly, a lot of it had to do with it is what it is, and that's what I got, and this is what I'm going to roll with. But it helped that I had friends that I mean, a lot of them had, you know, money in Midlothian. Mm-hmm. I think that helped that I wasn't ever judged. I don't feel like I might have been. I mean, people might have been saying stuff on my back, but you know, who gives a shit? But like, you know, it's just, I feel like you and your Justins and, you know, Garrett Varn, or like, yeah, everybody in Nathan Wood, like everybody always, even though we're all different, it's like, I didn't never feel like it was regular. Like when we watched like movies about high school, like 90s movies, it wasn't like, to me, it didn't feel the same. Yeah. So I think having those people in my life that were cool with who I was, even though we were polar opposites, but we liked hanging out. I mean, I don't know. I think it was just a whole lot of, that gave me my confidence, if that makes sense. That I had people that were like, hey man, that's who Ryan is. If he wants to wear white Wranglers and flip-flops in 30-degree weather, that's what it is. And if you have a problem with it, then, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I think, I'd probably say that helped a lot.
One thing that I guess I'd be interested to hear is what it's like, because your boys are 4?
5, 5, 2, and then the newborn she'll be 1 in September.
So Grayson is your oldest.
Grayson's the oldest, yes.
And then it's
Aiden.
And then Fallon?
Fallon.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear what it's like with 3 kids. Because we had 2. Jonah wrecked everything.
Yeah.
And I tapped out.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was talking about this the other day. I can't remember who I was speaking to about it. And they were like, yeah, you know, how is it? And I'm like, dude, it's something else. I think, so when we had Gray, I was like, all right, you know.
Sorry, can I ask, did you see yourself having a bunch of kids?
No, not a bit. No. Well, so here's the deal. So, you know, going off subject, but like, I didn't ever want kids.
Really?
I really didn't, man. I think it was because, like, going back to earlier, I was constantly working, man. Constantly trying to give C a good life, right? A good, comfortable life with all the extras she wanted, whatever she wanted. So, I mean, I'll say it selfishly, no, I didn't want kids. I mean, with my schedule, it's like, you know, well, I say before kids, she was in nursing school, so it was a little different. But like, you know, if she was out on break or something, I'd be like, hey, let's go to San Antonio. Or, hey, I'm about to hit a week off, let's go to Mexico. Or, hey, you know, I don't know, we were just going and blowing, really. And she always wanted kids. And I tried to convince her out of it several times.
What year did y'all get married?
We got married in 2010. So we were, I'm a little older than her because I was a summer kid. So I was 22 or 21. And
That's
she was
so young, bro.
Yeah. And we had, at the time, with no intentions on having kids. And we didn't. I mean, we didn't have kids until 2016. So 6 years of marriage, and then we had kids.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then I just, excuse me. So yeah, we just decided to, I don't know, I guess she always tells everybody, and like I said, I'll tell you anything. She was just like, you weren't ready, man. I just knew you weren't ready. Mm-hmm. You know, she'd seen me with my niece and nephew, and she knew I guess she thought I'd be a good dad, or knew I'd be a good dad. I don't know. I can't really judge that yet.
What is the gauge of that? Like, what is the? I don't know.
I guess. Well,
if you're not murdering people,
I did a lot of. Once we, I guess, working in that world, getting off shift and we'd go to the bar. It didn't matter if it was 7 a.m. or what. Just I wasn't ready, man. I still had a lot of. I had to work through a lot of stuff as far as like maturing. I mean, we're guys. Women mature way faster than we do. So we talked about it, decided to have Grayson when we had him, and it was pretty easy. I think I say that as a dad. I'm not saying it's not easy for the moms, because I get it. So, these moms, man, they're super women. They really are.
Bro.
So we had him, and once we had him, I was telling you earlier, I think for me, like, I loved him instantly, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to say there wasn't a connection, but she fed him. She fed him. If he was upset, she'd calm him down. She was soothing to him, stuff like that. When I was there, not working, it was just, hey, can you change his diaper? Sure. And then give him right back because it's time to eat again, or whatever the case was. And then it wasn't till like, probably, I was saying like 6 months. I'll never forget it, man. I was holding him in bed one day and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
It's weird, right?
Yeah. It's weird how it hits people differently. It hits the women differently than it does the men.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you earlier, it didn't really hit me with him until he was moving around and talking. And dada, and seeing him get excited when I come home and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I could use another one. Like, like, you know what I mean? So we had Aiden, and man, that kid is wide open, dude. 100 miles an hour all the time. Like, he's fun.
But how was Grayson though? Like, as far, I mean, so maybe you said it, but like,
Grayson was the same way a little bit, I think. No, he wasn't. Not a bit. He was still. My mom always called it like he's just all boy, which is just an excuse to say he's wild, I guess. But he's mellowed out a lot, like a whole lot. I feel like he gets more Asia's traits in that aspect in a way. Like, I'm pretty laid back too, I guess.
Right.
So it's like he got all the laid back genes, and Aiden just got all the. Like I said, man, 100 miles an hour. He's everywhere. He is everywhere.
So it's funny because, like, to go back a little bit, I had the same thing with probably more Jonah than I did Juliet. Juliet, we just kind of like, it was our first one, and Rosie was closer with her initially, just because obviously she's pregnant with her, gave birth, like you're saying, feeding her, like she's 100% relying on mom. And then as I started to get more involved, like I started to develop that relationship. But with Jonah, he was just an animal out the gate, dude.
Yeah.
And as terrible as this may sound, I remember me and Rosie were on the way back from someplace. And I think the kids were in the back seat. I can't remember. But I remember the line that came to my head is, Jonah brings me more sorrow than he does joy. And what I meant from that was he requires so much work and very little do I feel like I'm getting back from it. Like, does that make any sense? No. Like, I wasn't having moments because he was so little and he wasn't sleeping well. He was crying a lot. Like, and he really like, I feel like with Juliet, we could go places and she'd be fine. Like, we can go out to eat, whatever. But then once Jonah came on the scene, like, it really restricted what we could do. Like, and then outside of that, like, we're just not getting any sleep. And, when he goes off, then he wakes up Juliet. Like, there was so many domino effects that he was causing that I didn't see coming. And so I made that statement to Rosie just to share, like, hey, like, I'm really struggling with this. To feed off or piggyback off what you're saying, like I didn't feel a connection with Jonah for the longest time, because I was like, I'm just working, like I'm just trying to help get this kid together, like, and most of the time he's just driving me to
insanity.
Yes, dude. Effing yes. And so that honestly, that lasted for a long time. And then exactly what you're saying, once he sort of developed a personality, then I found ways I could connect with him.
Right.
So like now, and it's really, I'm curious to see if any of your boys share this, but Juliet is not, she has a very much like a personal space. She doesn't like, and you know what's interesting? She has a personal space, so she doesn't like getting close physically to people, but then you can also see it where emotionally, like she doesn't say I love you very much. And I've picked up that she's aware of like, that's a deep statement. And I don't mean to put too much into that, but like at bedtime when I say, hey, good night, love you, she'd be like, love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like she's aware that that's an emotional thing. Like,
yeah.
So she keeps kind of, physically she likes to have her own space. And it seems like emotionally she likes to kind of keep it close to the chest. Jonah's the opposite. Jonah's so much into wrestling. He just wants to put his face in your face. Like he wants you to clothesline him. And so once that started happening for us, then I felt like I could connect to him. Right. And that statement of like, he brings more sorrow than joy, that started to flip where I found where I was, most of the time I was having fun with him and bringing like, our relationship was bringing joy. And then he'd have a tantrum and I was just, oh my God, I have to deal with this now.
Because how far apart are they?
So Juliet is 6 and Jonah's 4. Okay. They just turned 6 and 4.
Yeah. See, so Grayson and Aiden are like in the same boat as age-wise, right? And I feel like, it's funny you said that because Sia used to tell me that all the time. Like, she's like, I feel like with Aiden, when he was a baby, I was more so just kind of, not that I didn't have a favorite or, you know, that's out the window. That's all BS, right? But I think because it was a weird transition for us because now, like right when we had Aiden, Grayson is 2, you know, and it's all about me now, or all about Dad, right? So I feel like, and I understand what she was saying. Like I was with Aiden, I was just kind of like, meh, like, you know, it's a baby, you take care of him. I got the big one. Right. Almost. So I think that's kind of where me and her struggled with. She was like, well, why don't you love him the same? And I'm like, that's not that I don't love him the same. It's just, this one's fun now. And this one is new, so we still got time. I think that's one thing I always say too, is like I used to say is we got time, we'll figure it out. And then you realize, like once they say that, I've heard every parent that I've ever known say, well, once you have kids, it flies by. But I think with, you were saying about Juliet, I think it's because, and I've already noticed this with a, what is she, 8-month-old, 7-month-old, that the stuff she's doing now, like it took the boys, like it seemed like forever. Like they're just knuckleheads, right?
Like she's picking up on it faster.
They develop so much faster, and I'm saying this on record. Like y'all are, I've figured it out. Like, women are smarter than men, and y'all develop faster, y'all mature faster. I get it, and it makes sense. So I think, like what you were saying about the "I love you" statement, you're right. She's already like figured it out. Like, I can say that now. I mean, I am curious to see how different it's going to be once Fallon gets that age. Because it's like, the boys are the same way, man. They're just like, they want to play, they want to wrestle, they want to fight, but they are, like, mine are too. And I don't remember being like that as a kid.
I don't either.
Like, I remember as a kid, we were a very much so, like, I love you too. You know, like that's get off the phone. That's the last to this day. Like I say it to my mom. Like I love you too. Say it to Sia, which I hope she don't get mad at me saying this. She, like Sia, for example, didn't come, like they know that they love each other, but they don't like express it like our family did. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a woman thing, like between, you know, her and her mom and her dad, but it's just so strange to me. I don't know. It's because I think women think about everything, man. Like they think about like, okay, this is this is for real. This is a serious statement. So before I say it, you know, and she's probably just trying to figure it out too. Well, you know how kids are. Why do you love me? That's what, you know, you just never know.
Yeah. I wonder, like, I have two questions here. Where did Fallon come from?
Well, I can't remember where it came from, actually, now that I say that. No, I think it was from, Sia heard it or saw it on some old show. Oh, what was that show called? I can't remember what it was called. Because
what a backstory.
Yeah, I know. Thanks. Yeah, that was awesome, huh? No, it was from, what was that show called? It doesn't matter because it probably wasn't that good. But we were flip-flopping between that and Siobhan. And, like, they're both, like, old Irish names. I don't know. She just kind of liked them. But then, I cannot think of that show. Anyways, yeah, that's where it came from. That's some old show, so y'all enjoy that. Good luck figuring out what show it is. It's taking it to the grave. It's my secret.
The other question I wanted to ask is, obviously, 2 boys first, and then your first daughter. One of the things that, like, I feel like and Juliet's 6 now, so, like, those conversations about, like, growing up and, like, things that you make her aware of, like, are pretty close around the corner. If not, maybe should have happened already. But I'm curious, like, I don't know, as a dad, like, do you think about you being a father to a daughter now and, like, what you want to, like, share with her? Like, because,
yeah.
I mean, it goes both ways, right? Like, so with Jonah, one thing I wanted to, like, really try and help him with is how to treat a girl. Like, how to respect her, how to understand consent, like, how to understand no, and then even before then, like, hey, don't put a girl in a situation that you wouldn't want her to be in.
Right.
Like, because for me, I feel like that was a lesson I had to try and pick up along the way. And so for him, I really want to try and help him out. Like, here's how you treat a girl.
Yeah.
Here's how you treat her nicely. But then on the other end of it, like with Juliet, it's a different conversation that I feel like primarily has to happen between a mom and a daughter. But I don't know. I guess I'm just curious, like, obviously Fallon's not even 1 yet.
Yeah, but I'm already thinking about stuff like that. Yeah, it's hard not to. So like with the boys, right? Like, you know, it's just being a gentleman, being tough, you know.
Which you were alluding to this earlier.
Yeah, taking up for yourself. Yeah, sure, that's one thing. But as far as like, so like I've always made it known. Like I was telling you earlier, like I talk to him. Oh, I say I talk to him. I talk to Grayson right now because Aiden's still a kid. I mean, they're both kids, but you know what I mean. I try to talk to Grayson like a grown man, right? And I try to explain to him stuff. I know he doesn't understand exactly what I'm saying, but I'm just going ahead and just starting it, not kicking, you know, just this is how it's going to be in this house, and this is how it is. So one thing, I get what you're saying, like the mother-daughter type deal, but I feel like as a dad, I still have to show her stuff, right? So like, for example, ever since Grayson's been born, my big thing is, and call it whatever you want to, and I know in the world we live in now, it's, and I'm all for it, man, woman empowerment, but I opened the door for Sia. Like, I opened her car door, and he's going to open her car door. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to instill, like, little things like that.
Right.
To be a gentleman, right? As far as, you know, opening car doors, mom and sister come out first. Mom and sister order food first. You know, it's weird how you don't really have to talk to them about that stuff, and you just do it, and they'll pick up on it. I feel like, anyways, right?
That's interesting.
So, like,
do you like address it though? Like, do you say like, hey,
I used to,
mommy and Fallon are order
but
first.
now it's like, I think with him now that he's almost 6, he's to the point where he knows. So we'll walk out, if we're all walking out together, mind you, he knows that mommy and Fallon get in the car first.
That's interesting.
We open the door for him first. We know we do this for them. I think, like, you know, I guess that's something people really don't talk about as far as like, but most servers will look at the woman first and let them order first, right? Like, even though he's a kid and people think I'm ridiculous for doing this, like, no, you're not going to order first. Mommy's going to order first. Now, if mommy orders her food first and then orders herself, that's one thing. But, I don't know, just women first. And I think as far as Fallon goes, I mean, that's going to be a learned thing, right? So, like, if she starts dating in high school and hopefully, I guess you're right. I guess you don't really talk to her about, I wouldn't really talk to her about that stuff, but hopefully it's like learned in actions, right? Well, wait a second. My big brothers are opening the door for me and mom first, and then this guy driving this V6 Mustang isn't opening my door for, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying it's,
but you know what's interesting about that conversation is so on one hand, if you're trying to train boys, you're trying to train them how to act. So you're trying to train them in the behave this type of way, don't behave this type of way. With girls, it seems to be, and granted, I am missing something here. I don't know how to articulate it, but with girls, you're training them to respond. Like, hey, if he does this, don't do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not necessarily training them. Man, anybody that's listening to this is probably going to hate me because, like, you're totally missing the point. But it seems like with girls, you're trying to not train them, you're trying to help them with, if you're in this situation, here's what you can do.
Yeah.
Or if you're in this situation, you should know it's not the right situation.
Right.
Like, it seems like you're trying to help them with reactionary, like,
yeah,
if a boy's doing this, yes,
yeah,
right, like,
no, it is. I feel like it is. I don't know. We don't know. We're still new parents, so so don't crucify us for not knowing what to do. We just think this. I agree. I mean, I would 100% agree. You're teaching them defense. As far as the boys, you're teaching them offense, I guess.
Right.
But
that's what it feels
not
like.
A lot of offense. Just, it's hard, man. It's hard to, I don't know. Because then if, I get it. Because then if, like, okay, let's say when these girls are dating, right? It's, if they've learned this stuff by the actions of me and their brothers, right? Versus me sitting there not saying anything and not explaining anything and just being like, man, that kid, man, he's, I don't know, he's worthless, whatever. Generally, when you start, coming down on what I've seen from other kids and what I've been through as a kid myself, when you tell somebody not to do something, they're going to do it anyways, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like, I don't know, man. It's tricky. I think it's going to be really tricky with the girls, personally. I mean, it's going to be tricky with the boys, too, because like you said, I mean, I don't know. It's totally different. It's so weird how similar you're going to teach some things, but other things you're like, no, we got to take this approach to it.
Yeah.
And that's what's weird.
Even from kid to kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think with ever since I've had kids, now I have like this worry constantly, right? And I'm already thinking about stuff like when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. You try not to. Try to just enjoy this as what it is.
Right.
And try to roll the punches, but I can't help but to not try to prepare for the future.
Yeah, because you don't think of, at least is how I've approached it or seen it, is you don't think of, oh, when they're 16, then we address this. I tend to think of it as like, if I start laying the foundations now, it'll help when this comes up at 16 or whatever the age is.
Right.
Like, it seems like you're always just trying to build a process for them to like develop these ideas or understand these values or whatever it is. Like, it's never anything. It's like, oh, we can address that later. It's like, if I start like what you're saying, like opening doors for Sia or letting her order first, like if you just start doing these incremental things, like it helps them understand along the way, like, oh, this is why, or like this is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
An interesting conversation I had with a buddy not too long ago, and I've been struggling with this. So this conversation you just have to set, let's just say Christianity or religion aside for a second, was how do you, and I guess maybe I'm posing this to you because I'm interested to hear what you think. Let's say you're talking to Grayson, and Grayson asks, Dad, what does it mean to be a man? What would you tell him that wouldn't translate to a girl as well? Dude, I have been struggling with this question for so long because I don't know exactly what the unique thing is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's totally different now. I mean, the world we live in is totally different.
Right.
So I can't imagine. I'm sure I did ask my dad at one point what it's like to be a man or a dad or whatever.
Hey, Maggie.
And I'm sure he told me back then, you know, well, you're going to go to work and you're going to provide, and then she stays at home with the babies. That's what it's to be a man. You know,
right.
That's what we were kind of talking about earlier, like the whole toughness thing, right? When you get hurt, and your dad's like, "All right, get up, let's go." It's oof, that's tough. That is tough.
It's a hard question, right?
I've never really thought about it like that.
I heard that a few years ago, and I still struggle to like formulate an answer.
I think.
Sorry, everybody. Maggie's in the room.
I think what it's like to be a man. I guess what I would tell him. Good Lord, that's a hard one.
Right? It seems like it should be a simple answer or a fairly simple answer, but it's actually really difficult.
I guess I would say not. The simplest way I could say it is not to be selfish.
But can you tell it to the girl as well?
Nah, I won't tell my girl that. I'll tell her to be selfish. I mean, and what I mean by that, I think it's like everyday life, right? So like, I think it's hard not to do it, but like when you asked me to come on, I was like, you just start thinking of stuff like where could this conversation go, or this and that, blah blah blah. I think I don't know, man. I think and then I say too, like I think it's just a learned thing. Like I remember, just selflessness, man. My dad, I remember, we were leaving church one morning, and I was probably 5 or 6 years old, man. And we were driving by in the town we lived in. We were driving by this Taco Bell, and I'll never forget it. And I'm sure I probably just blew it way out of proportion, but there was a car on fire, right? And I'll never forget, man, like we pulled over, and like my dad, who has no training and none of this stuff, right? Like as far as like being a paramedic or anything like that, like
right?
Because I don't know if he saw that there was kids in the car. I don't know what he saw, but he pulled over and got helped get the family out of the car, right?
No way.
Like, and I don't know. That's something like I'll never forget. So like, if you see somebody with a flat tire, a woman with a flat, I don't know. It's just one of those things that we always did. Like it seemed like I was always with my dad, and I'd catch these moments. Like a woman be on the side of the road with flat tire, so we'd pull over and change her tire for her.
Right.
Back then too, we didn't have cell phones and stuff, so it was like, can't get a hold of my husband. Well, yeah, because there is no way to get a hold of your husband. I don't know. It's just selflessness, I guess, in one aspect. But see, that's what I was telling you earlier. That's what I struggle with. Like, yeah, man, give everybody whatever you can and be the nicest person you can be, but you still have to have a toughness about you, I guess. And that's what I struggle with. Like, when do you stop being, when not to get ran over, I guess is what I should say. Does that make sense? As a man.
Be a pushover?
Be a pushover. Mm-hmm. Versus, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a hard question.
It is a hard question.
That is a really hard question.
Yeah. Because the reason I preface that with taking Christianity aside, because Christianity has this belief system that kind of answers that question.
Right.
But if you don't ascribe to that belief system, then it's a really difficult question to answer. And I think it's a difficult question to answer. Hold on. Let me sort Maggie out. This clicking is going to drive
Bye, girl.
the audio nuts. sorry. So picking up what I'm saying. So now, because there's more equality between men and women, it makes it a more difficult thing to answer. But for me, it's a tough question because I feel like there's an answer there, and I don't know exactly what it is. And I was talking to a buddy about it. He gave it a response that I think maybe is where I would lean towards. I don't have an answer for the girl side of like what it means to be a girl that you couldn't say for a boy as well.
We'll never be able to answer that one. So, I don't.
But as far as the boy side, his response was something along the lines of learning how to deal with aggression in an appropriate way. Because what seems to be, and again, it's not across the board, but what seems to be a common denominator is that boys struggle more with, I guess I'll just say aggression, more than women tend to do. And it's learning how to utilize that and control that in a beneficial way for obviously yourself, but then also for anybody that you end up being responsible for, a wife or a kid or things like that. So that seems to be the unique thing for men, is learning how to tackle that obstacle of overcoming adversity, and then learning how to channel aggressiveness in whatever form that may look like, because some guys are more aggressive than others. Like you for yourself are very laid back, so but you have an aggressiveness in you, so it's learning how to channel that. So I don't know, that's kind of looping back to kids, but maybe just more in general. Like, it's been a really interesting journey. I was just trying to work through that personally. But what's crazy is, like, once you have kids, you kind of feel like this, I need to get my stuff together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I've got to pass this along to them.
100%.
But you're still trying to work through it. Like,
yeah, we're still growing up ourselves.
Yes,
again, I will say it again. Women mature so much more faster than men, dude. I think kind of to hit on what you were saying right there, I think it goes back to what I was talking about before we jumped on, was the whole, because of our fathers and grandfathers, like, we didn't talk about emotions. Like, we didn't talk about anything. And that's where me as a dad, I struggle with, because I don't want them to be like me. Like, I'm laid back and I bottle and bottle and bottle, and then boom, there it goes. So I think with me, I think that, which is funny because I've learned that over the years, just talking to people, man, and getting stuff off your chest. And that's what I'm trying to explain to my kids, man. Like, when they, like Grayson, when he throws, like, if he throws a fit about something, because he got in trouble, like, I try to talk to him and explain it to him, like, hey, well, you made a bad decision, man, so this is why you're in trouble. Right. You know, so you can't be upset because we're upset, you know, that you made a bad decision, basically, right? I'm trying to...
It's really difficult.
It's very difficult. Because you don't... I don't want them... I want them to feel like they can talk to me, where I didn't feel like that. Like, I could talk to my dad about stuff, like, right up until he left, right? So I want to, it's weird, right? You try to be different. Like, you want to be different than your parents, I guess. But in some aspect, you want to harness some of that. Like, we don't need, I feel like sometimes, like, with some situations, you don't need to talk about everything. But then it's like, what I struggle with is, well, when do I sit them down and be like, hey, man, we need to talk. What's going on with you? Blah, 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 blah. Like, I never did have that really growing up. Yeah. But I want to have it with him, but I don't want him to, I know this sounds bad, but I don't want to have him use it as, like, a scapegoat, right?
I know what you mean.
So, like, where do you find the balance? Like, it's scary, man. It really is. And then, like you were saying earlier, like, we're not even mature ourselves, man. I'm nowhere near being mature at all.
I'm in complete shambles.
Yeah. So I mean, and now I have to, like, boom, like now I gotta help this thing grow up and like try to teach him to be better than me, I guess is what the goal is, right? Like, but how do you do that? Nobody has the answers to it.
That's the thing, dude. So when you like, if you observe and acknowledge a way that you were raised, and then you intentionally make a decision to say, I'm not going to do it that way, there's no playbook. Like, there's no, like, you have nothing, because obviously all you have is how you were raised. And then if you try to say, I'm going to go a different path, then you're just making crap up as you go. Yeah. Like, and it's terrifying because then as you're making stuff up, you're like, is this right? Am I totally damaging my child right now? Like, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. So it's, like Grayson's in school, right? So we were talking about kind of like this the other day. And Sia's very, like, will text his teacher, email, like, constantly, like, hey, how's it going? Blah, 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 blah. Is he doing okay? Yada, yada, yada. And, of course, like, he gets a report every day, and he gets a sticker or he doesn't get a sticker, and she'll explain what happened for that day, right? And, sometimes as a parent, you just feel like a failure. Like, he got in trouble the other day, and when I got a phone call from his school, and I was just like, what? Like, what is he doing? Like, what? No way.
Right.
So I think that, talking to Sia about it, she's like, we're failing, man. Like, we're failing them. I'm like, but are we? Like, we're always asking for this information. So when they give us bad information, we can't be like, he's going to go to prison now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that's where me and her struggle with too, is like, we're asking for this information, and we like his school where he's at. We love his school. We love his teacher. And it's like, well, she's just giving us what we want to know. So, of course, I think that's a woman to worry like about stuff like that. 'Cause she's like, you kick him out and blah, blah, blah. And you just, I don't know. It's like, all you can do, I feel like, is to tell them what they've done wrong and how to fix it. Or why, not necessarily how to fix it, but how to, I guess how to fix it. Because we don't know what we're doing. So, and I was even at the point where I was like emailing his a teacher, and I was like, you got any idea? Like, I thought about it, and I was like, because I don't know. You've had kids, like, yours are grown, so can you help me out? Like, and of course, when we talk to her in person or whatever, she's like, no, he's great. He just has bad days, man. Like, I think that's where I that worry comes from, as I worry about, especially ever since I had kids, man, now I worry about everything. Like, are we doing it right? Are we not doing it right? And, she's like, man, he just had a bad day, and just letting y'all know, like, so I don't really remember where I was going with that necessarily, but
you're talking about like just parenting. Like, if you're not gonna follow the same mold that your parents before you did, like, it's just, you just kind of feel like you're wandering in darkness trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and then I think, like, man, are we doing this right? Like, am I supposed to be doing something different? Or should I revert back to what I do know? Like, I don't know. It's just a crapshoot, man. Like, we just really don't know. We don't know.
One thing I wanted to actually come back to, and I feel like it's been a big thing between me and you, is music. And I don't know how to ask this question, because I don't really know if I'm looking for anything in particular. And it sounds really vague, but what impact has music had for you? And I know that's a really vague question, but like, you were talking about it earlier, and you were talking about almost how music helped you find identity.
Yeah, 100%.
But I'm curious if you can like elaborate on that, because I think I sympathize with you. I didn't know how to articulate it for myself, and it's been like, I don't mean to like look into it too heavily and like overanalyze it. But music has been a really big thing for me. And because we kind of share that, I'm just interested to hear.
Well, I think as far as when I say like, I'm like it's a big part of our lives, right?
Right.
So, and I feel like it's always been a big part of mine, and in knowing you, it's been a big part of your life, right?
Right.
And I guess like where I was getting at earlier with like, you know, Dad having blues on, or you know, Queen on, or like, I think as far as me and the way I was brought up in that aspect with music, it was easier for me to, I guess, identify with people differently.
Yeah,
like I could listen. I mean, there was really no. I never got like any flack like from my parents as far as like you know, like I said, my dad is a blues, rock and roll, stuff like that. So like when I got into, if I would like pick up some hip hop album or R&B, like, well, R&B was kind of like a thing too, but like it was okay. Like that's what we listened to. Like I guess what I'm getting at is it helped me. I don't want to say identify, but like with different cultures and having that in our house and different. I mean, I would just say it. I mean, it helps you not necessarily understand, but it helps you. I guess it helps you. Music connects everybody, so I guess it would connect me to different races, religions.
That's interesting.
Stuff like that is what I feel, right? So, I think that, you know, if somebody comes in to the office and I'm listening to, you know, like Albert King, like some blues, like some good blues, and they're like, "Oh, you listen to blues?" Like, yeah.
Oh, it kind of creates that kind of
it's like a
connection that maybe wouldn't have been addressed, or
right, or they would never know. They're probably, you know, just whatever. And that, I think it goes with all of it. Like, you know, you look at like, you could look at me and I'm trying to think of just anybody that's lives on a farm, and I'm like, oh yeah, have you heard this album by so and so? And they're like, kind of look at you different, like, how do you know about them? I guess music to me has helped me identify with people and help me communicate with people better and just kind of build that bridge, I guess I would say.
Yeah, certainly. I always, in some sense, I always felt like music was, and I think most people maybe know what I mean, but it was always a way to express myself.
100%.
That I didn't know how to express any other way. So like in particular, like me and you, we like, and it's somewhat fading for me like recently, but I still enjoy it, is like scream music, like hardcore metal music. I don't know how to put into words what I felt like that was expressing for me, but it was doing it. And I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but I felt like by listening to that and letting people know that that's what I listened to, it helped express a part of me that I didn't know how to share.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No,
Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, and I think that's why, like, I've always gone back, or not, I've always gone back, because I do, man. Like, I can't even tell you what all was on my shuffle on the way up here. You know what I mean? But, like growing up, I guess, in, like, the hardcore scene, or whatever you want to call it, I think that's what always attracted me to that, because it was all walks of life, all, you know, everything, religion or not religion, or, you know, black, white, Mexican, didn't matter. Like, we were all, that's what, and that, I think that's like, that's where I struggle with, like, with the kids. I know I keep going back to the kids, but like, hardcore music, I think, was so impactful on me because in some cases, you got your aggression out. In some cases, it was, and that's what I tell Sia, because me and Sia are total opposites when it comes to music. Yeah. And she just thinks it's just bop, 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 bop. And I'm like, no, like it's, you know, it's picking yourself up, you know, stay on the path, like just keep going, keep moving, and that's what I explained to her. It's like it was a little family. I guess that you have those little families, and if you like her, she likes, I don't know, Britney Spears or whatever. I mean, I guess you have those followings also. But you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I think it's funny, man. We were talking about that the other day. It's like, you just think it's just angry, and you don't. There's so many more messages behind it. And I think growing up, that helped me. And that contributed to my confidence too in high school. It's just, hey man, this is what I'm going to do, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And it's but anybody can say that about any genre of music, right? Like, I think I just identified when I was younger being the angry kid, so that's, I don't know.
Kind of. The unique thing about like scream music is, I don't know, my personal perspective is like, I don't know what they're saying. I have no idea what this guy's saying. But there's two things that, like, it seems to me that I enjoy. And I'm interested to see if you agree with this or see where I'm coming from. Is I feel like scream music and hip hop music are similar in that they're primarily driven by a beat. So hip hop, you have a bass, snare, whatever it may be. And then in scream music, it's a similar tone. Like, it's that kind of bass sound. And so even though they sound completely different, it's that for me is primarily why, just aesthetically or musically, I've enjoyed it, because I've just enjoyed the beats that it has. But then, like, yeah, I don't know what they're saying, but the fact that they're screaming kind of like settles a anxiety in me. So when I was in college, I would listen to that when I was writing papers or studying for a test. So, and it sounds weird to people, but like, it calmed me. Like, it, like, I don't know, it distracted my mind from going too far off. Like, almost like noise control. Yeah. Like, in my own head. I don't know, man. Like, I guess coming back to where I was coming from, like, for me, music has really been big, and it's like shifted kind of like in different stages of life. So like now, like, I'm huge into synthwave, like, and just something about it that, like, it's just where I'm at or what I'm into. It's just right there. And like, I've been on that kick for a few years, but I still go back to like scream music and stuff. But I don't know, like, music is a really interesting thing, because you're right, like, it has such a huge effect, like almost subtle effect. Like, even when you're talking about, like, if you and X number of people are into this band, you don't have to be similar, like,
at all.
You could all be in the different walks of life, different things, like, look different, everything, like, but it's the one thing, one of the things that, like, can unite you and bring you together. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's an interesting topic that, like, because I don't know many people that listen to scream music, I haven't been able to explore it. Right. But it was one of the things I was looking forward to talking to you about, is kind of what it's been for you, or like how you've, I don't know, how you've ingested it, or like, I don't know, I guess how you processed it or like invited it in to like who you are and like your identity.
Part of my identity. So we're like, as far as just hardcore type music goes, right? Right. I mean, I think growing up, like, just going to shows, right? Like, and just having somebody next to you, which it's so weird that people don't get it, but you don't get it until you go, right? Like, someone's like screaming these lyrics next to you, right? And you're screaming them too, and you're I don't want to say angry, but you're going through similar stuff in life, right? And it's like it's like a brotherhood, man. Or you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like
I know exactly what you mean.
I think it's like a, I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. Would be like a brotherhood. So that's what I think always helped me out, and that's why when you have like some artist that talk about stuff that nobody wants to talk about, right? Where if you deep dive into some of this stuff, right, like it's there's so much out there, I guess, and that's why I think that's what people like don't like it. Like we'll just say hardcore, for example. You know, it's upbeat. You know, if you're 80 years old, you don't know what they're saying. But if you break everything down and like read the lyrics and like it's all about like togetherness, I think, and that's why I think I've always like I don't want to say went back to it because I'm always in it, but like I think it's togetherness. Whether, like I said, whether you're race, religion, there's somebody with you going through the same thing, and we've all, I guess, in the hardcore scene, you know, air quotes, however you want to say it. It's like we all know we're struggling, and we look to this. I don't want to say look to this either, but this is helping us get through it because this song talks about this, and I relay this song as A, and you might relay this song as B, but it's all pushing us towards like just togetherness. Like we're in this together, we're going to get through it together type atmosphere. Yeah, that I've always gone out of that.
I don't want to over idealize like maybe the effect it has, but as you're saying that, the thing that came to my mind is how like I'm hypocritical is not the best word, but if you were to look at that scene or that group of people who listen to hardcore music, it's always like what's being accomplished isn't what you're seeing. So like
exactly
what you're like, so you're talking about like it's helping people go through struggles together. Like it's helping people overcome whatever they're dealing with. But if you go to that concert, what are you going to see? Effing mosh pit where people are trying to punch each other. Yeah. And so what probably a normal person would see is like, oh, these people, like, this is exacerbating their struggles because they're coming here and just wanting to fight each other. But it's not. Like,
it's not. That's what I.
It's a really weird, like, this is how we're working through this. And again, I don't mean to over idealize it, but there's a weird effect about just going to a concert, having somebody play music that obviously sounds good, which is relative to who's listening, but that tone and that environment is like a releasing effect. And even though what you're seeing is being portrayed as violence, it's a release of what you're trying to like work through and deal with. Like it's so weird, bro. Like,
you know, so it's funny you said that because I was telling you earlier, like probably I can't remember how long ago it was. Feels like it was just a month ago. I went with a buddy of mine to like it was like Acacia Strain, Kubla Khan, you know, stuff like that. And I mean, I'm old now, so I don't really. It gets rowdy, and I got in there a little bit, and that's what I've always laughed about too. You know, if somebody gets hurt, it's totally different, man. People think that it's like they're just out to hurt each other, and it's not like that at all. Yeah, man. Like I remember when I got in there, this girl fell on the ground, and everybody stops. You know, picks her up. You're all right, yeah, and just keeps going. But it's funny, like, being older, and I don't know if it's being older, being a parent, or I don't know what it is, man. But when we were all walking out that night, you know, there was a kid that had a busted lip, and he was just laughing and smiling. And it's like it releases something. And you can say that about any type of live music you listen to, I guess. But it just, until you, like, that's why I always try to explain to Sia. It's like, you'll never get it because you don't want to get it. And that's fine. And I'm okay with that. But in my life, that's how I got through a lot of stuff, was music and lyrics from these guys. And I think I've done all right. I think they've helped me out enough, you know? Yeah. I think it's like you said, it's that release, man. And it's not even, you can even go, and the people that aren't in the pits, or, you know, if you go to a country show or go to like anything, it's a release. It's a calming effect. You don't think that. You think that we're all going to leave this show and we're all going to be angry and we're going to like tear a Waffle House up, and you know what I mean? It's just, I think I think that's why I always identified with it, or always was drawn to it, because the camaraderie, we're talking about like some lyric, pick yourself up, and then that's what we're doing out here. It's just, I don't know. I used to say this, and people would look at me like I'm crazy. I was like, but I think in some ways, man, it saved me in a lot of ways.
I guess that's what I was trying to dig into is like, I don't know. It's mind-blowing to me how music can be so profound, but you don't know exactly how it's doing it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Like, you hear things like, if you listen to freaking Beethoven when you're pregnant, like it has an effect on your kid. Who the freak knows if there's any value to that? But it points to this thing of like, and what you're just saying, like music saved you. Like, music has this massive effect, and I just can't put my finger on what it is. Like, it's just like this surreal thing that we deal with. Like,
well, I mean, like, think about it like this, right? So let's say, this is the way I kind of looked at it. Like, let's say you're a farmer, right? Mm-hmm. You've been up since 4:00 in the morning, and you're going in at 9:00, and you put on I don't know, just think of any of your old country music, like George Jones, right?
Right.
And you're like, I mean, it's like all right, it's a break time, it's over, dinner's done. I don't know, picture a farmer off sitting on his back porch, right? And drinking a glass of tea and listening to some old country music, and it relaxes them. It does something to us, man.
It's weird, right?
That's what I've always believed. I don't know. That's why I'm like, we've always been pretty good about whether it's stuff she likes or stuff I like or stuff we both like. Ever since we've had kids, we blasting it out the house, just because whether you're dancing or whether you're whatever you're doing, you're getting some kind of release.
Yeah.
So, I think about it like, whether just lyrics in general, whether they're hip hop, hardcore, country, you're getting something off your chest, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody out there is going through the same thing. Yeah. Or they're going through something similar and they can relate to it. Mm-hmm. That's why I think it's so important. I think I don't know, it's kind of concerning. I've been hearing a lot about getting rid of music programs in the schools and stuff. Like, no,
really?
You can't do that. Yeah. You can't do that. There's no way. And it brings everybody together. Mm-hmm. As divided as we are right now as this country, like, music's like the glue, it seems like. It's been around forever, since the beginning of time.
Yeah. One thing, I guess, bringing up school there is, I don't know, I guess figure while we're on the topic. So, Juliet was actually going to start school last August. Mm-hmm. And coincidentally, I guess, that's when Delta started to kick up really bad. So we ended up unenrolling her like 2 weeks before school started. Mm-hmm. But one thing that, like, coming back to similar to the first question I asked about some things you've learned like since high school, one thing that's like really stood out to me, and I'm still trying to work through because I don't know I have a solution for it yet, is education. And for me, as I started to get a job and understand what's coming out of my paycheck or buy a house and literally trying to understand what escrow is. Mm-hmm. Never heard that word in my life, and trying to figure out how it's impacting my monthly payment. DIY projects around the house. Mm-hmm. Like, I encountered a slew of things that I was like, I'm not prepared for this. Right. No one told me about this. And I blended that with education, and I think, what did I get out of school that was supposed to prepare me for this? Why am I learning trigonometry? Like, why am I taking these courses on, I don't know, I guess primarily mathematics, but then, I don't know, I guess I just felt like school wasn't doing what it seemed to be set up to do a long, long time ago. So before, your kids would go to some small village school, and assumedly, again, this is me making assumptions, but they would be set up to learn, obviously, knowledge, but then set up to learn life. And I just feel like now, because it's to scale to such a large degree, and kids are just being prepped for tests and learning how to ingest information and then just forget about it, like regurgitate stuff. Yeah. I don't know. I've been really conflicted with about sending Juliet to school, but then also just like understanding how I think what education is. I guess I'm interested to hear with Grayson starting school. Was it last August?
Yeah.
Was he in school a year before that?
He was in like preschool or like daycare type stuff.
I don't know. I guess I'm interested to hear if you've had any like thoughts about like them going through the school system, and like I guess it comes back to what we were saying before, like how you're just wanting to prepare them for life. Like,
yeah. See, that's where I struggle too, because like, so Grayson's going to a private school, right? And we decided on that because smaller classrooms,
right?
More interaction with your teacher. I would think, I'm not for sure how they do like in public school, like kindergarten, but I know with Grayson, I feel like, let's say if there was, I don't know if there is, but let's say there's 20 kids to 25 kids in a classroom.
Right.
I think that'd be too much for them. And I think that's when everything just goes haywire, right? So the private school thing, we wanted to do that for those like main reasons, right? We wanted them to, have some one-on-one time if he needed it, and it's okay, and whatever the case may be. I guess the thing I struggle with him going to private school, like now you watch the news and I'm like, he's never getting out of private school. He's going to go to private school, and then he's going to go to college, and then he's going to get a job, and blah, blah, blah. But the thing I struggle with is, and we've got years to talk about it.
Yeah.
But is it going to shelter him if I keep him in the private school, right? But then, is it going to hurt his education if I take him out of the private school when it's either middle school or high school, right? So that's one thing I struggle with. And then I hear, I was talking to a buddy of mine, he has a son in high school, he's a sophomore, and he said he's got like 40 kids in each class. And I'm like, what is that doing to them? Like, is that good? Are they really paying attention? And it's not the teacher's fault at all, by any means. Right. But like, so let's say they're taking a test and my kid's in the back next to this other kid, and they're like, hey, help me out, So that's honestly that's a whole nother story. But like when we were in school, I just skated by, man.
Yes,
I did.
Dude.
I skated by, and then I almost shot myself in the foot, because I was doing these AP classes, and they were like, dude, we know you're not studying. You're not applying yourself. You're barely passing. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. And then, I don't know. It's just, I guess I don't think about it as far as education. I'm thinking about like long term. Does he need to be in a public school? Does he need to see people that are different as far as financially, or you know what I'm saying? Because think about it, man. Like, and don't get me wrong, there's probably people struggling at his school right now, paying that, payment or whatever the case is, right? But you don't know because they all have uniforms. So you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know how people are living. It's sheltered. So then you want to talk about putting them in a public school. Like, I feel like that would be good. I feel like it helped me because I was in private school until 6th grade, 5th grade. So it was a culture shock, but I think it was something I needed to see, or I needed to be a part of, maybe, to help me grow up. I don't know. Just seeing different people and different struggles, and
yeah.
And then you hear about, I don't know. It's just, these teachers aren't paid enough.
Oh my God.
There's not enough classroom. There's not enough space.
That's what I'm saying. To scale, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It never will. Like, it's just,
But the problem is, I don't know what the solution is.
I don't really think there is one. As much as you probably didn't want to hear that. Well, because, I mean, you struggle with the same thing, right? So let's say y'all are like, all right, we'll just homeschool Juliet, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's the same thing, like the private school aspect, like, well, when is she getting time with other kids? When is she getting to interact with other kids?
Yeah.
And I get it. I've doing the research, I get it. There's groups that are homeschooled. You can take them here and take them there together.
Right.
And
it's different.
It is different.
When you're just thrown into a petri dish of the school system. Yeah. Yeah, we've had that conversation. The thing is like, it's difficult because Rosie is killer at stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. So, like, Rosie used to be a teacher. And so it's somewhat perfectly set up for her to do homeschool. Because she kills it, bro. She freaking kills it. Like, she's so good at it. Like, activities, all that kind of stuff. And Juliet is, like, thriving. Like, I don't know. To whatever degree you measure success or measure, like, she's, like, operating on a second grade level. Mm-hmm. Like, she's thriving, dude. But the thing, like, the reason I bring this conversation up is because she has an environment that's uniquely tailored to her. Mm-hmm. And I get that you can't do that for every kid, but there has to be some kind of middle ground. Like, there has to be a way that you can help train kids to be prepared for life and tailor to what their, like, strengths and weaknesses are. Mm-hmm. And we're still trying to figure out Juliet's, but, like, for me, I knew pretty early on, I hate English. Like, as far as learning sentence structure and poems and, like, reading, I don't know, these freaking old school novels, which I can appreciate.
Right.
But it wasn't anything that, like, I was going to...
It didn't interest you.
Yes, dude. Oh, man. Like, that's the thing that, like, I'm trying to... I don't know what it is I'm trying to get my head around, but it just seems like there's a glaring problem of, like, having an education system that's somewhat tailored to kids in particular, as opposed to everyone takes this test, and if you don't take this test, you stay back in the grade behind. Yeah. Like, such a, like, I heard somebody describe the education system as the Industrial Revolution, where you started building plants and had people come in and they did the same thing over and over and over, and you produced X car, and you just kept doing that process over and over. And that's what education essentially is like, you take these classes, you go to school these many days, and you get X certificate at the end of it. Like, done and out of here. Like, it just feels like an industrial process, and it needs to be changed or revolutionized to, like, tailoring to certain aspects. But
I get what you're saying, but then on the other hand too, it's like, did you know what you wanted to do when you were in high school? Because, you know what I'm saying? Like, in a perfect world, your freshman year, you're like, all right, I'm going to go be a doctor. Okay, well, cool. We'll put you over here, and we'll put you on that path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people's lives change. Everything changes.
But think about this, though, is like, yeah, so you probably don't know. But I guess even to that point, like, you don't know what you want to do in high school, and then you get to college, you probably still don't know, but you're taking on a massive debt in order to get it. Like,
right.
It's crazy, bro. Like, so for me, I guess on the same subject, like, so we've been trying to save for, like, their college fund, but it's not a college fund for me. Like, I'm just putting money away from them to where...
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
Right? I don't want them to feel like they have to go to college, because to me, I'm just like, what is it giving you? Like, why burden yourself with this X amount of debt that you're going to be dealing with for 30 years maybe?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's the only reason why I put money back. If they want to go to school, great. Well, here it is. You know, do your thing. But, because you're right. I mean, you don't want me to say this, but Sia is a perfect example, man. She went to school. She's going to be a nurse. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a nurse. Got her degree in it, passed her test, whatever, and she's not a nurse. She just, you know what I mean? Like, because you don't know. Man.
You don't, bro.
You don't know, and
you're saddling yourself up with $50K easily in debt.
I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where you're just like, well, oh well, you know, just...
It's crazy, bro.
But I think that's the hard part. But I think that now that with like the charter schools and all that stuff, there's all kinds of different schools now. That if the kids have an idea of what they want to do, then sure, I think it's more tailored to them. Like I know somebody that's in somebody I work with. His daughter's going to. They're like in that like Joshua Burleson area, right? Mm-hmm. And I think she's starting high school, but I mean I've never even heard of it. But he's like, yeah, she's going to a school where when she graduates, she's going to have her. Pretty sure it's just her associates, but
graduates high school. She's gonna have an associates.
Yeah, but it's not like how like I think Sia did it. I know some kids did it when we were going to school where they were actually taking college courses. Well, this is where she'll have her associates. Like she's I guess set up, you could say,
right?
And you don't have to pay for it. I mean, it's weird how too like you
ahead of the curve.
It's weird how. I get it. It's a big old state, but why are we not doing this in every school district? Because that to me makes more sense. Because I was with you, like me. I don't know why. I think I was always into history, and I was into English. I thought I liked writing. I liked reading, but like the algebra and stuff didn't bother me. I was just like, I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. And I was like, there's no way anywhere in life that I go that I want to do is going to have, I don't need this. Like, I don't need it at all. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I struggled with in school. But
dude, the crazier thing is like, I saw somebody talking about this the other day, because obviously when we were going through school, and for most people, technology has gone so fast, so quick, that I remember teachers saying like, "Oh, you're never gonna have a calculator on you." Mm-hmm. False, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
we do.
Oh yeah.
But then the other part, the thing that struck me was somebody was saying like, "Why are kids learning the history of the presidents? You can just Google it." Like, and it's true.
That's very true.
And I know there's a line there at some point where like you just can't be reliant on. I don't know, Google, whatever right. You're gonna find. Like you have to like stretch your brain and like learn. I don't know, but like so much has changed in our world, and I don't feel like the education system has caught up to it. And so like we're still practicing, or we're still trying to teach things that like, I guess like to what you're saying, like why are we still teaching algebra? Like, to my question would be, what is this providing to someone in life? Like, how are they going to be able to utilize this later in life? And I feel like anytime I've had this conversation, somebody would come back and say, oh, well, maybe that's what they will end up doing later in life. But if they hadn't taken that course, then they would have known. I'm like, so why are we catering to the 1%? Like,
yeah.
Shouldn't we have a more like...
Coin toss.
Yes, dude.
Well, maybe one day they'll eventually... Yeah, I mean...
Why do we have a whole education system structured to that one person? I mean, I say one person, but... Why do we have a whole system set up to that one person that may be like, oh, I love algebra?
It's easier.
Like, can we not have a more like efficient, like, let's maybe teach about mortgages or whatever?
Oh, 100%, man. You know, it's funny too, and I think, I think me and Sia were lucky because, you know, it's not mortgages, but, you know, she always had family, like, in the car business, right? So I learned about percentage rates and stuff like that when we got married, like relatively young. And like some of these younger kids at work that'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go buy a car. I'm like, you want me to go with you?
Oh, dude.
You know, or like I offer advice and like, hey, this is what you need to look out for, blah 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 blah. And until they come back and they're like, yeah, I got a 20% interest rate. I'm like, no.
Oh my god.
Or like you were saying, like with, you know, mortgages, that's a big one,
dude.
Like you have no idea. Like I was like, well, okay, we bought a house, awesome. And you know, learning about your escrow, learning about all that stuff, you're right. To me, that makes more sense to do. I mean, I don't know if the coin's still going to be around in a couple years, but learning how to give change back, dude. I mean, seriously, how many times do you go to a store and let's say like you give them a $20 bill and they're like, oh man.
Yes,
and
dude.
And I hate to laugh at it, but it's like, okay, that dime right there, give it back to me, and then a penny. But because you don't know where you're gonna be in life. You might have to deal with money every day, like cash every day. That might be your thing, man. You might be, a grocery store clerk or a gas station attendant. You might own a gas station one day, but by God, you're still gonna know you're gonna have to know how to give change back. And I'm with you on that. Like teaching these kids about interest rates and escrows and what kind of loan you need to get when you're buying a house and all that stuff.
Think about the whole process of buying a house, dude. Like from step 1 to step finish, whatever it is, I was just so clueless. Like, in a moment that I had, I was just like, what am I doing? Was when we were signing the paperwork and we were signing 50-something pages. And I'm just like, I'm signing things I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just agreeing to say, yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah, like, and I have no idea what.
This is what
this could say. You need to sacrifice a goat every Tuesday. And I'm just agreeing to
Nobody
it. Nobody
knows. See, that's another thing. Like, we got lucky because actually, so Desiree, Justin's wife, her mom was our realtor, and dude, she walked us through everything as far as like the whole process goes. But that's like, it was so funny because when we went to sign our papers, she was there with us, and we all met up here, and I'll never forget it. She was like, okay, so this is what happened. And I was like, oh no, what's going on? She's like, okay, so this guy works for this company and that's where your loan was through. But then these guys right here, this guy right here, and we introduced ourselves, they bought your loan. You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea that happens sometimes. Like, and I was like, so we're good? She's like, yeah, you're fine. So, having her helped a lot. Because she was constantly in contact with Sia, like, all right, this is what we're doing, this is what's going on. But like I said, like, if we didn't have anybody like that, I wouldn't know. And then signing all those papers, and it's just, there's so much more to learn. I get what you're saying. There's a whole bunch more to learn than just trig.
I just feel, man.
No offense to people that use trig every day.
Hey, man, props to trig.
Yeah.
I just feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm an anomaly, but I feel like I got shoved into the world. I didn't know what the F I was doing. Like, and I was signing up for these big commitments, and like, you even talk about college or mortgage, like whatever, man. Like, I just feel like I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
I still don't have a clue what I'm doing. Obviously, based on some of my answers.
Yeah, we don't know where her name came from. Some show.
Yeah. I think I'm dadding okay. Like, I guess I'm doing all right. I guess they're going to be okay. I guess as long as they're not serial killers, I've done all right. But it's just, there's so much to it. And I guess that's what falls back on us as parents. Like, we've lived it, right?
Bro.
So,
yeah.
Trying to give them that knowledge, because you can't fight the school system.
Yeah, true. I mean, I guess you could homeschool, but it comes back to what you were saying before of like, if you homeschool, yeah, like maybe you get a bird in this hand, but then when you lose out on is all the social dynamics, which are, I would say, just as huge, maybe if not more. Like, learning how to interact, I would say maybe more valuable than what you can learn in education.
Talking on that though, I was thinking about that the other day, right? So you made the calculator comment. Well, they get handed iPads.
Yeah.
And this goes with you. Your books are on it. Blah blah blah. blah So that's one thing I've noticed. Like, everybody's so reliant on technology. They meet people. They, everything they do is online. So it's like almost then you gotta like, is she really missing out if you homeschool her? Because they're just like everybody else when you walk they're just like everybody else when you walk into a restaurant. They're like this at school. So they really, and then they're like instant messaging each other, like, or sending Snapchats or whatever the case is. They're not talking like me and you are talking. They're talking, through a phone in the same room. Like, it's weird, man. We're in some weird times. We're in some very weird times. And then every time we have another kid, I'm like, ooh, man, should we have done it? Because what are we going to do with them? Like, I don't understand. How we've never lived in this type of environment before. But now we're trying to learn it and try to teach them how to live in it. Like, it's scary.
Yeah. And you know, like, I would assume, like, generations before us probably had a similar struggle, especially, like, with the onset of the internet. Is, like, I don't know how to handle that. So, I mean, I know, like, to some degree, I don't really want to give the kids a phone when they're in elementary school. Like, that seems like a pretty easy one. Man, once you start getting into middle school, because at some point you have to come to terms with, like, if you're holding back technology or a phone from them just for the sake of them not having it because you want them to stay pure, I guess, is maybe the way you're looking at it, you may end up being more harm than good. Because it's the world, bro. Like, everything's online. Like, and so trying to stay to that principle at some point is detrimental. And I don't know where that line is. But man, the other thing, coming back to girls, is like, I don't want Juliet to get wrecked by being online and comparing herself to other girls or like, I mean, God, like, it's so bad, dude. Like, I'm not trying to sound like old or like cynical, but like, I think statistically it shows that like online, when you're a teenager and you're on the online a lot, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like, it's just so bad. Like, it just exacerbates.
It's almost like it's too much information at once, right?
Whether it's access for everybody to have.
It's too much. It's way too much. Like, think about it. They can YouTube anything if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Anything. Or, you know, it's just like, it blurs the lines to me. Like, what's right, what's wrong. I think you're about to get into, like, either body shaming or whatever the case is, right? Cyberbullying, right?
Yeah.
There's just so much. It's just like an overload. That's what I think happens a lot, man. It's just an overload of information, and I honestly don't know how I'm going to handle it.
I don't either.
Because it's like you said, it's almost like, especially like in middle school, I feel like they probably are going to need it, right? You're going to need a cell phone if she's into sports or music or band or whatever the case is. Picking her up late from school because she's at, you know, whatever, basketball practice.
Right.
But it's not like the cell phones. Like, it's like, all you can do is call your parents and, like, play Snake. Like, now it's like, I don't know, man. And I said it, man. When we had kids, I was like, they're not going to be on an iPad. They're not going to have an iPad, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, Rosie's really... Not trying to diss Rosie, but she's really strict with screen time. You know, I just kind of follow her lead with that. So, like, typically look at, like, an hour a day. I'm watching a TV show, or, like, on a weekend, maybe watch a movie. But outside of that, like, we have a tablet that they'll substitute for screen time or TV time. So, yeah, Rosie's really strict with it. But, like, yeah, there's going to come a point where it's going to be a necessity for them interacting with friends, and, like, I don't know, man, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? So I would always be like, man, just like, look at everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
And, like, a perfect example last night. So my mom kept the kids last night. So we went and saw a movie and we went to dinner. And next to us at dinner, there was a family with 5 kids, ranging from probably freshmen, like, all the way down to, like, 5.
Oh, wow.
And one had a Nintendo. The high schooler-ish person had a phone. One of the other girls had a phone. One of the kids was sleeping on the dad, you know. And I was like, it's funny, like, I was always against that, right? And I get it. Like, especially when they're young, like, throw them a tablet, sure. Like me, I'm just not going out to eat. Like, it is what it is, right? But And I was thinking about it, and they were still having a conversation. I can't help but like people watch, right? So they're still holding like conversations, but then I was like, is it wrong for them to have it?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
That's another one of those, like, are we doing this right? Like, should we just not just give it to them, but you know what I mean? Like, is it really going to hurt them if they're on one or not?
I don't know. It seems like it's like what's best practice. Like, isn't necessarily a conversation of is this harmful or is this good? Like, is this just helpful? I don't know the answer to that. Because I dude, same thing. Me and Rosie went out to eat the other night, and parents were all sitting at one table, and there was like 4 or 5 kids at a different table, and they all were on something. And I was like, man, bro, like, and I'm certainly at a place in life where I'm never wanting to be like observe something and be like, oh, that's wrong. Like, I just always want to. And dude, I have an interesting question for you, or I guess an interesting thing after this, but I never would just want to be like, oh, that's terrible. Like,
right.
Because maybe I'm just not understanding something. Like, maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, dude, you're right. When I see like just a group of kids together, but they're all on their phones or on some kind of device, I just can't help think, but like, that's not how it's supposed to be. Like,
yeah.
And I know that sounds freaking like a boomer, dude, but like, I just think interacting is so huge, especially when you're younger, bro. Like, learning how to fill out those awkward silences and like learning how to read body language, like, just huge, bro. I don't know.
Or just coloring, because I forgot to mention, because it was weird. It was like we're in the middle. There was a table over here to your left, and then to my right, there was a couple with their young son, and the dad and the son, and everybody was talking, and everybody was talking at that table too. Now, obviously you've seen memes of it or whatever, where people aren't talking at all; they're just on their phone.
Yeah.
But I mean, this family was holding conversations and whatnot. But this family over here with the one kid, and maybe it's because they have, then you're like, well, maybe it's just because they have one kid. They can focus on that one kid. They were coloring the whole time, and he was probably
what the whole family was.
The mom wasn't. The mom was talking, and the dad and the son were coloring at this other table. So it's like, no, that's the right way. But I'm like, I mean, is it? I guess that's like you said, the boomer coming out in you or us. Like, it's like, nope, we should be coloring. They should be playing tic-tac-toe, and that's it.
What's that game at Crackle Barrel where you have to like the triangle thing?
Yeah, the tee game, or I guess it's golf tees, but yeah. Yeah, play with this.
Yo, sorry. The one thing that I'm curious to get your thoughts on, and then after this we'll probably wrap it up if it's okay with you, is the whole. I have a specific question, but like the whole Ukraine thing. Something that I've struggled with almost up until recently is, like I was saying before, one thing I've really like tried to embrace in the last few years is just trying not to judge something off of face value, and just trying to understand that almost always there's always another side to the coin. And so like when you read in history or somebody tells you something, not to instantly go, oh, what a terrible person, but just be like, maybe they're doing something. Maybe something's going on in their world, or, yeah, this guy did this, but maybe it's because of something that I don't know about that caused him. You know what I mean? Like, just always trying to give the benefit of the doubt in some sense. So like this whole Ukraine thing, when it started, I didn't know anything about Ukraine, like nothing. So I did some Googling to try and find out why Russia wants to invade a country, and kind of got caught up. And that told me a little bit. And then Russia actually did it. And not Russia, Putin actually did it. The thing that I struggle with, because me and Rosie would talk about it quite a bit, is she would, Rosie would be like, oh, he just bombed a caravan or whatever, like a tragedy, an actual tragedy. And in the back of my mind, I was like, surely he has a reason. Like, there has to be a reason to this. Like, there's no way this dude is just bombing a country just for the sake of bombing it. Like, no one's that crazy. But dude, like, he bombed a hospital the other day, and I was stumped. I was like, I I can't think of any reason someone could justify like bombing a hospital. And the thing that I struggled with was like, for most stories, events, whatever in life, however screwed up it may be, like you can always kind of see where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing with this thing. It was like, I can't see how this guy's justifying the action he's trying to take. And like, it doesn't seem like there's a good alternative or a good ending to this. Like, let's say he takes Ukraine. Where do we go next? Like,
what happens after that?
It's such a perplexing thing. And the other thing too is like, it's 2022. Like, we're in war. Like, this is still a thing. Like, because we read in history in World War I, World War II, Korean War, whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just felt like, like they just didn't know how to work out problems, so they went into war. Like, you have this kind of like, they didn't know better.
Yeah.
That's why they went into war.
You figured out for all these years we'd have figured it out.
Yes, dude. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's such a wild, I don't know. It's such a wild thing to be going through. Granted, I don't mean that in any kind of like, I'm actually going through it, because
right.
People are tremendously struggling with it. But just as a mind exercise, or like just trying to understand it, it's difficult because you're just like, what is happening? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I think that's what scares me more than anything with it, is if he takes Ukraine, what happens after? I think that's the main thing. And then it's, when are we going to get involved? It's like, I know that sounds really shitty, and I'll say it, I'm sorry for cussing, but that's what it is. It's really shitty to think like that.
Yeah.
But, when are we going to get involved? What's it going to do? How's it going to impact us? And that sounds awful to say that, because people are dying or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it goes back to the whole, it's fun to me. What I find funny with it is, at first I was being pretty ignorant towards it, just like, no, they'll figure it out, And then the invasion kind of started, and then it's weird how, this is what I don't understand, and I can go on, get my tinfoil hat out, like, what happened? Like, it was like they invaded, and then 3 days later they met somewhere, and I was like, okay, cool, it's gonna get worked out. And then you didn't hear anything else, or I didn't hear anything else about anything from those meetings, and then it's back to this, and I think I don't know, it's pretty, I think it's pretty odd. It's very odd, like you were saying, like how I guess that's just being a creature of habit. Like, we always fall back into war, I guess, in some sense, because that's all, I don't want to say that's all we know, but I guess there's really not a good playbook, possibly, for war. And it's like, I don't know. My deal is, what's the point? And maybe that's just me being ignorant to the whole situation and not looking it up and doing all that stuff. But it's like, what are we doing? And then how are we going to fix it? Or on some hand, it's like I was saying earlier, like, do we need to worry about it? Like, I mean, it's over there. I thought it sounds really bad, but it's like, well, that's just how Russia and Ukraine and all those other countries are. They're just angry, and I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand the tax on the hospital. But that's just me. I mean, that's just me being human. That's the way I look at stuff. Like, if there's a big issue and we need to go to war about it, then let's go to war about it. But it's kind of like the old, like, leave the women and children out of it type thing. Like, I don't.
Which I think is part of the Geneva Convention is. But I think
so. From what I understand, and I'm about to say I'm really ignorant because I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't either.
From what I understand is that they didn't want Ukraine to sign
with NATO.
Right. And then I guess that's me, man, just being simple. I'm just like, okay, like then they sign with them. Who cares? Like, why does it matter? Why does it matter to Putin? I guess is my point.
So the only understanding I've gotten towards that is, again, I don't know jack, bro. I'm just trying to piece information together. But from what I've understood, is it similar to the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Okay.
And I don't know anything about that either. But from what I understand is at that time, Russia was wanting to send Cuba missiles. I guess I'm assuming nuclear missiles, but let's just say missiles. And America was like, no, because they're really close to us. And we don't want that kind of threat that close. I think it's the same thing with Ukraine and NATO. Is obviously if Ukraine joins NATO, they're really close to Moscow. And if they're a part of NATO, they could be equipped with missiles. And I think Russia... So that's the other side of the coin of this thing. Like, I kind of understand where this is starting from. But then once you get into... You're sending a 40-mile long convoy to absolutely pillage a country. I don't understand why you're doing that. Like, but I can kind of understand where the tension is that Russia is like, no, I don't want you that close to our doorstep. But I don't know, man. Like, it's the other really weird thing about it is like, it's different places, and what I mean by that is, in America, in most first world countries, there's free speech, there's access to whatever's going on in the world, like, and so there's this developed morality that is kind of built into the culture. The problem with, from what I'm understanding about Russia, is they're so shut off that most people don't know exactly what's happening, and so you would think like, oh, well, surely the people would protest, but it's like they don't know, like. Or if they do, they get imprisoned, which isn't a thought that even would come into my mind. Because if it happened here, there would be a riot about somebody getting arrested for just protesting. So, like, that was the other thing, was like, surely these like people in war, like these soldiers are like not wanting to do this.
Yeah, what are we doing?
But maybe they're not, because like, a military mindset is very much like you obey, you don't ask questions, right? So there's that aspect of it. But then also, like, maybe they haven't been informed about...
Yeah, what are they getting fed?
Exactly, dude. Yeah. Exactly. Like, it brings me back to, like, Germany. Like, they were just feeding their people, like, Jewish people are taking all your money. Like, they're robbing you of what you're entitled to. Like, constantly being fed this, like, false information. So, surely, after a while, you believe it, and then that's what you act on. Like...
It's like, I always say, like, watching Fox News or CNN, right?
Good God.
It's like you're in a different dimension, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they're getting fed. They're getting fed the same thing. For all they know, they're blasting that Ukraine's about to get these missiles. And, and they're going. We have to take care of this now. This is what we got to do.
You can see it, right? Like 100%. It makes sense if that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just what they get fed. It's like North Korea, all that.
Oh,
I mean, it's just like. They don't have social media. That's just weird to me too.
All right,
and it's like
primitive.
Wait a second. So there's some, I don't know. It's just strange because we don't live in it. We hopefully never will. But there's always two sides to every story.
Yeah, and I don't mean to go down this trail, but another, I guess one thing that it's opened up is I think Rosie took the kids to somebody's house the other day. And they had the TV on, and there was footage of it. I don't think anything happened. I think the kids like saw it, but in my mind, it was like, how do you approach that conversation with a kid?
Yeah.
And like, I'm just thinking like they don't understand. They don't have the capacity to understand that somebody could want to hurt somebody like willingly. So like if Juliet hurts Jonah. Typically it's an accident, or she did it out of like anger, but she quickly realized like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Or if we tell her, hey, you need to go apologize. Like, so the idea of like, oh, someone could like hurt somebody and want to do it and keep doing it, or like, I guess just evil is what I'm getting at. Yes, dude. Oh. So like, me and Rosie talked about like, do we need to try and have a conversation with them about what's happening in Ukraine? But it's just like, they don't even know other countries exist. Like,
yeah, but it's one too I never really did think about, because like we were too young for the Gulf War to realize what was going on.
Yeah.
And then 9/11, we were at school, so we knew like, okay, well, when they said we're going to war, oh, okay, well, this is why.
Yeah.
So I guess I never really did think about that. Like for the younger kids when 9/11 was going on, when they saw that, what did they think? Or what were
How
they
do you
told?
explain that
How do you
to
explain it?
Yeah.
How do you explain that somebody is... I mean, I don't know how I would explain that to Grayson.
No, dude. How do you explain evil to someone that doesn't understand
Has no concept of
that
it.
evil exists?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think... Maybe it's because I try not to watch the news and stuff around them. I don't know, that's a tough one, but they've seen it. So what do you do?
Like, does Grayson know about it, or like, has he seen?
He hasn't seen any of it. Because I won't watch the news. I mean, I'm not like I gotta watch the news every night type of guy, anyways. But if like Seal watch it in the morning when she's getting ready, after she drops the kids off, she'll turn it on or something. Or like me, I'll watch it either in the mornings with her, like if I'm on nights, or late at night, they're already asleep. And that's what I'm saying. Am I sheltering them too much? Because I'm not not talking to them about it. I don't know. I just don't. I don't want to put any worry on them, if that makes sense. Right now, at the age that they're at, like I don't want to put any more pressure or stress, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Because, I mean, I don't know. They're just... Because I feel like Grayson, I think he would worry about it. Like if we sat down and talked about it, like, hey bud, this is what's going on, just let you know, like, I think that's how his mind works is, I mean, Aiden's like, whatever, man. But like, Grayson would be like genuinely worried about it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is you have to factor in like, because I think Juliet's probably similar to Grayson. She's very like emotionally in tune. And so if I was to tell her like, oh, God, that's the other thing. You got to figure out like, what would you even say? Like, yeah, I think Rosie's done a really good job of it. And that day in particular, I think Juliet had asked like, why is there a car on fire? And I think Rosie was just like, hey, I guess coming back to this in a second, but like Rosie was just saying, some people will sometimes want to do things to people because they feel like it's right, but it's wrong, and therefore they hurt people to do it. She goes like, that's part of what you're seeing is someone felt it was they were entitled, or I don't know how she worded it, but just like some people just want to hurt people. Sorry, the reason I paused there for a second is the other thing that I felt like was important in general by that conversation is, I don't know how accurate this is technically, but it seems like for the most part, the invasion of Ukraine is primarily Putin driven. Like there's no checks and balances for him to stop it, or like it's him. The thing I was talking to Rosie about was, I feel like it's important to not say, and I guess this is why I tried to correct myself earlier. It's important to not say Russia's invading Ukraine, because then you're grouping a whole country into that decision. Right. And I would imagine that most of them are like, we don't want to do this. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't know. It was a thing I guess came to my mind was, particularly now, of how to try to use language correctly and just keep using the word Putin as opposed to Russia. Because then if, let's say, mainstream media or whatever keeps using the word Russia, I feel like what naturally would happen is if you ran into a Russian, you'd be like...
Well, it's the same thing that happened with COVID, really, right? There was a China virus.
Yeah.
So now you see people getting beat up on the streets because they're Asian. And they're probably not even Chinese. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just people just go haywire, man. And that goes back to just, there's too much, like, useless. Some of it's useless. Some of it's useful information. Where it's just like, you see somebody that looks a certain way. I mean, this goes on forever. Since the beginning of time, right? Yeah. But, by God, you see somebody look some way, and you're going to do something about it over here. And then...
Oh man, how weird was COVID, bro?
It was different.
It was different, dude.
It was different. It was way different.
What's weird is like one of the weird things. I mean, there was a lot of weird things, but like, so we recently started going back into the office, and I ran into a girl that's worked there for a while, but I haven't seen her since 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Yeah, we had a baby," and I was like, "What the freak?"
Yep.
It's almost like you spliced 2 years out of people's lives.
It did.
Like that happened, but everyone's still like connecting from 2019. Mm-hmm. to current day 2022, but you've like removed 2 years out of that. Like, and so when you're like, "Hey, didn't y'all just buy a house?" "Yeah, I bought it a couple years ago." You're just like, "Oh, freak."
It's how it is, though. That's what's weird. Like, I talked to a buddy a while back, and he was like, "How is Aiden almost 3 already?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Y'all just had him." I'm like, "No, we just didn't see y'all. Like, you know, we just, especially see us, we were just like staying at home. That's it. That's all we're doing." And it was weird. It was kind of scary. I'm glad we're starting to go back to normal.
Yeah.
But I was scared about that for a while too. I was like, man, that sucks, dude. Like they're not gonna go to school. They're gonna be, we're gonna be at home forever. But
the fact that it carried on for so long was just bananas.
I think it's because I really do. I really think being social for them is important.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was like panicking bad. Like, we can't play soccer. We can't play t-ball. Like, what are we gonna do? Like,
but was all that stuff shut down?
Yeah.
Damn.
Well. But I don't know. I think it's just it's important though. I think saying that is right. I never really thought about that until you just brought it up, and that made me think of COVID was the whole Putin is invading, not Russia is invading.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. Like with the whole like China virus, like you group together an association with obviously this negative thing, and then consequently, or what's that word? Consequently, you're gonna have like negative association with a certain group of people.
Yep.
Only and purely because you use the wrong words. Like, I don't know. Super well. Dude, I think we can probably call it on that.
Cool.
Thanks for coming out here, bro.
Thanks for having me.
I genuinely was looking forward to this, and kind of coming back to earlier, like you uniquely, I feel like me and you have, for whatever reason, just shared a bond. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it was music, but then like you're just really easy to get along with. Like, I had so much fun with you in high school, and like at the reunion, I was kind of checked out, but I was just seeing you. Like, I don't know, man. I've always treasured you. I've always cherished you because I just think you're a super cool guy. So I'm glad we're able to catch up.
Vice versa.
You know? Man, it's just it's so cool to me. It's so cool catching up with people and just hearing what's been going on, because it just gets crazy, bro. Like,
it's super crazy.
you go down the weirdest paths, dude, and just end up in places you would have never thought. Like you having 3 kids.
Yeah. No time for nothing. None.
Awesome. Cool, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Adios.